a couple weeks ago, and people were talking about it, and so I'm going to share some ideas with you about it as well. But I also saw a story about how the death of the department store and the middle class, and it took one tack on it, but I will tell you that from my own experience, I bought my first house when I was 23 or 24 with bonuses I made working in retail. And like many people, my part time job became my full time career. And yeah, I got my college degree, but the skills that I learned in college, I was able to bring to a different way and to a different level by working in a retail store. And I learned three things that were all that matters when it came to retail. Do they buy it? Do they use it? And do they keep it? It's that simple. That is the reason why retail works. And from that, do they then rave about it? Okay? So if you understand that, then you understand that the reward or that way into the middle class was people being able to execute this at a high level. And that goes from different brands and stores. And I will tell you, if you're watching this, you're a store ops person, this is your ticket forward, because the people who still are focused on this are going to be the ones who come through 2021 and 2022 just fine. The people that aren't learning this, that don't understand how to connect these dots, are going to be little more than warehouse workers in a beautiful store. And if you're a brand manager and you're watching this, I think the way forward is to get back to basics and understand all that matters is, did the customer who had interest buy it, did they use it, and did they keep it? And I'll talk more about that at the end here. But really, that's the crux of retail. And so you have to move your store from being a place like, oh, it'd be nice to get that someday, to I need to have that. That's my other point that I want to bring to you. And, part of that is, how do people find a brand? Well, most of us are going to go online first, of course. And in this case, I saw Guitar Center, and this was a review from about 3 months ago. Always have a good experience here. If ever there's an issue with my equipment, they are quick to fix it, no questions asked. Henry sold us our last guitars, asked for him, a good dude. That connection to an individual is what drives a brand. That's what drives loyalty. And yeah, Guitar Center is in bankruptcy right now. They're expecting to exit, but the stores are kept open. And when you have that, then that's your ace in the hole, that anybody can sell a cheaper guitar. It comes down to that personal service. In fact, Erik Nordstrom from obviously Nordstrom's a couple weeks ago was quoted in an article, "We must translate the heritage of service that defines us more effectively in this digitally connected world. This means delivering personalization at scale by creating greater linkages between the digital and the physical experience." In other words, how do we take what we've been legendary for in our stores into the web? Which is really crucial and important. And in Guitar Center's case, about 3 years ago, the Washington Post ran an infamous article about why my guitar gently weeps. And then the whole idea was boomers are aging out, and there's no great rockers anymore, and no one will ever buy a guitar again. That's kind of what it felt like. And yet, just in the last couple of weeks, we've seen the articles come back. Guitars are back, baby, and people are picking them up at record levels. In fact, I think Fender was quoted as saying sales are up 17% this year, and how exciting that is. And even though music stores were judged non-essential and were closed, many have picked up instruments during this pandemic. And that's great news. But innovation is what's going to drive that. And in Guitar Center's case, I was doing a speech in Las Vegas probably 9 or 10 years ago. And I needed something for a speech. And I went to the web and I saw the page here. This is the Las Vegas Guitar Center at that time. And I was so impressed with it, I had to take a screenshot. Yeah, that's right. Because each one of their employees had their own page. And you could see who their name was. They actually had their own page. And you could email them, you could find out their influences, you could find out, oh, this is the great guy to he understands DJing, oh, this is the perfect guy to set up a home recording studio. It was amazing. I was like, that is the future. That is exactly where we have to go, is to make people want to come into the store and realize, oh, there's experts are really here. It's not a they, it's a Craig or whoever it is, right? So now I look at their website and that's what it looks like, which is kind of like anybody else's website. And I was kind of scratching my head at that, like, really? Is that it? Because now it's just kind of products. Everybody's got products. Without that innovation, I don't see how you're going to grow it. It's almost like they move back from innovation, right? that they've had these ideas and they move back. And why is this important? Because everyone is crying to go on to online with the endless aisle. But Smart Assistant survey just a couple years ago found 54% of respondents admitting to abandoning a planned online purchase altogether because there were too many choices. This idea that endless aisle is it, no. I need someone to curate it down for me. And that usually takes a well-trained person that doesn't just take a hobbyist. It takes someone being able to translate your joy and your voice lessons that you've learned into the ability to share that with somebody in a meaningful way so that they say, I'll take it, right? And one of their Guitar Center's biggest competitors this is their home screen where they say buying a guitar should be fun. And they lay out the 4 steps that they use to try to sell online to try to replicate that. And yet, where'd the people go? Guitar Center, help me. Where'd they go? What happened? You guys had it. It was so cutting edge. I was like, awesome. And again, maybe you don't sell instruments, but you certainly sell apparel or sporting goods or a number of things. The idea of the expert and not just some YouTube video that we pull up, but you're really breathing, living human beings that you employ who are passionate about your brand. Isn't that it? And here's the kicker on all of this. Fender's CEO said in a recent article 2 weeks ago, 90% of first-time players who pick up the guitar abandon it in the first year. I can't imagine that. So it makes you wonder, like, if they've had all these big sales, are all these going to be listed on Craigslist in next year? And ultimately, if only 10% keep them, how are you executing on that? All that matters. Do they buy it? Do they use it? Do they keep it? You know, we know in apparel that returns are up to 40-50%. And we know that retail brands are in for a huge headache this holiday season. They're trying to get ready for the massive returns they're going to have because with stores at limited occupancy, 20 and 30% or whatever it's going to be, the crush for online, both shipping and being returned, is going to be huge. And why does that matter? Because if you actually do the numbers, you are noticing that anytime somebody touches that merchandise, we lose margin. So if we have free shipping both ways and I have to go pay somebody to go pick it up and move it and put it here and check and make sure that that is in good shape enough to ship it out, etc., we're losing margin all the way through it because all that matters, did they buy it? Did they use it? Do they keep it? Yeah, I know, Lisa, that is a crazy statistic. That's why I'm doing this today. Because ultimately, if that's the reality, then the one thing you do is to let somebody feel that they matter when they come in contact with your brand, especially in a brick and mortar location. It's not going to happen online. I don't care. Yeah, I'm doing a pretty decent job with broadcasting here on LinkedIn, but it's not the same as if you and I are in a conversation in a store and I'm showing you things, right? And so, yes, we want to go through and we want to use technology. I'm not some Luddite, but make no mistake, we've got to realize that all that matters, not just that they buy it, because that's great. Yay, we got all these, online is up 5,000%. Oh, yeah, well, geez, the 4,900% of those are returned. That's not a great statistic, right? And so I also want you to be thinking, my final point here, you're not just selling a widget, you're selling a promise. And money's only part of that transaction. Now, what does that mean? If you're a apparel store, you are selling the fact that you're going to be confident when you go out in the world into an event, and we'll have events again, or you'll get the girl or the guy, or you'll lose the weight, or whatever it's going to be. Now, in music's case, I'm a musician. I got my degree in conducting with a minor in business, and I learned in choirs when I was a little kid. You would not recognize me because the social skills I learned through a community as a musician. Those are the voice lessons that I learned. It wasn't just about my tenor voice at that time, now probably a baritone, but it was finding the voice lessons to say things I couldn't, the confidence that I couldn't. And that's what music brings to us, is that, yes, and the other thing is I like about learning an instrument is you either hit the note or you don't. Orchestras have blind auditions where you're behind a panel. You either did it or you didn't. Isn't that something that would be great for every kid to learn? Absolutely it would, that there isn't you can kind of get your way through it. It's like, no, you either do it or you don't. And the same thing is that sense of a voice lesson. And if we could just get that back, but you know what? We're hearing choirs and orchestras may not be back until 2021 or 22. Yeah, I know we can do virtual. It's not the same. And so if we understand music stores, you and Guitar Center, all of you who are watching, that we have to hold on that legacy because we are the ones that give confidence to people at a time when we are filled with anxiety and we are insecure and we are wondering what's the future going to be. Realize that that purchase of that instrument or those lessons or whatever it's going to be is what's going to make the difference to us getting through whatever 2021 looks like. And if you just remember that if you're working in retail, you've got to move your store from nice to have to must have, and that's going to take people. Number 2 is to innovate with personalization. Yeah, I think that the Guitar Center, you were so ahead of the curve, and I haven't seen anyone else duplicate that in that way. I think that was amazing, and I think it also gave a certain amount of pride to those who were part of that. At the same time, I can imagine it's a nightmare to try to manage, but we've come a long way in 9 years. There's got to be a way. And then for all of you to realize you're selling a promise and money is only part of that transaction. Because if you're working in brick and mortar retail, you're managing a retail brand, all that matters is 3 things. Did they buy it? Did they use it? And did they keep it? Because from that, they're going to rave about your products. They're going to rave about everything that you do, right? And so if you want help with that, I've got an online retail sales training program, Sales RX, where I'll teach you how to engage a stranger, discover the shopper, and make the sale, and yes, make the add-ons. Because quite simply, with more and more competitors going out, when customers do get out, and they will come back, hopefully will come out in the holidays, but it's going to be tough, especially if you're in California, Los Angeles. I feel for you out there. That's where I grew up. But we've got to look 6 months out, 8 months out. Are you ready to be able to harvest the interest that's going to be there for your brand? Are you committed to figure out how do we go through and get them to buy it, keep it, and be passionate about it? And if you want some help with that, well then check me out at salesrx.com. And I'd love to see your comments and hear what you're doing to innovate, to go through and fight for the very life of retail. Because ultimately, the story of retail is going to be the story of the American middle class and middle class around the world. Taking those skills of how do we engage a stranger, how do I get someone to buy what they want to do already, make them feel good about it. That's kind of it, isn't it? I'm Bob Phibbs, the Retail Doc. Thanks again for joining me today. I appreciate you listening.